Religion is often seen as one of the cornerstones of civilization. It offers a common identity, collective goals, and beneficial structure to the lives of many people. As such, it should not be surprising to note that in the universe of Star Citizen, religions of all types are thriving 900 years into the future. My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to TheAstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today we'll be looking at the universe of Star Citizen and reviewing all the known religions of the verse. Let us begin with the religions of humanity. It has been explicitly stated by the writers that the major religions of today still exist in the future in some form. There are patches of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. existing throughout the universe. One such patch is the founders of the precursor to Crusader Industries, Seraphim Systems, who are implied to be some denomination of Christian before August Dunlow purchased the company. Another is the founder of Preacher Armaments, Keno Walton, who has always had a Christian bent to his naming conventions and marketing. Many of the modern religions have adapted with the time, incorporating alien species into the doctrine, for example. Those that haven't are slowly withering. The millennia-long grudges and intolerances between the religions has cooled, partially due to distance between worlds, but also because exposure to the Xi'an, Banu, Tevarin, and Vanduul has strengthened the commonality between humans. Effectively, this has created a humans first, theology second mentality. Of course, this means in some cases, the old prejudices and conflicts between religions have simply been replaced with rampant xenophobia. As much as humans have changed in the 30th century, they still remained fundamentally human, with all the flaws and issues still very present. However, this is a topic I will save for my video on the dystopian nature of the Star Citizen universe. This human-first, religion-second ideal is present through most human cultures, and especially in the UEE. The UEE still fundamentally respects the rights of citizens and civilians alike to worship as they please, but has not recognized one religion. The UEE is very much a secular and science-focused government and society, which has diminished the power of religion overall in the 30th century. However, there are still many new religions and philosophies which dot human space. The most prominent of these new religions is known as the Church of the Journey. While called the Church, it's actually a system of beliefs that rose to prominence in the late 29th century, so much so that its practitioners encourage people to have other religions other than following the Church. So you can think of it more as a philosophy more than a religion. In 2876, its founder, Vita Perry, developed a meditation technique to be undertaken before, during, and after long journeys. The technique was meant to enhance its practitioners' appreciation of their path through life, via understanding how a journey had changed them, delight in a journey begun, acceptance of a journey ended, and anticipation of the next journey. By the late 2890s, a code of morals centered around passing through the universe with as little impact as possible developed alongside the meditation practice. Followers of this code are known as journeymen or sojourners, and the most devout of these followers spend their time wandering throughout the systems in pursuit of knowledge through experience. They live by a few simple but strict rules. Journeymen are not allowed to own permanent residence. A follower of the church must go on sabbatical twice a year. Followers are encouraged to submit their travelogues to local churches for others to read. And finally, journeymen must never take what isn't offered. These tenets are intended for them to embrace life as a journey, participating in as many journeys in their lives as possible. Many take the rule about no permanent residence so far that they don't even own their own means of travel, relying on the kindness of strangers to travel from port to port, combining the first and last tenet. The most significant holiday in the Church of the Journey is Traveler's Day. It's become an almost universal UEE holiday and considered sacred by many spacers who call their ships home, even if they aren't followers of the church's teachings. Traveler's Day is an annual holiday observed on January 1st. It originated in the Croshaw system in 2905, when a small gathering of journeymen who had grown up together convened to exchange their experiences over the previous year. They repeated their actions the following year and the next, wherever they were, thus spreading the practices until it became tradition. Travelers' Day activities include storytelling, a potluck feast, games, and a 20-kilometer walk known as the Pilgrimage that begins at midnight local time. At the end of the walk, stories are swapped until sunrise. The largest Travelers' Day gathering occurs in New Arden on Cestulus, in the Davian system, attracting thousands of visitors annually. We actually have an account of Travelers' Day activities by the famed self-appointed drifter Old Jegger, who talked about a Travelers' Day experience of his own. Through a series of mishaps, he ended up alone, on the drift, with a busted freelancer and suffering from a massive hangover. So he called for help. However, since it was Travelers' Day and most people were celebrating at planetside, he was surprised when a reclaimer called the Evo Horizon answered his call. Not only did they come to his aid, but they fixed his old 37 Lancer, named Shana, for free. All they asked in return was some stories from the past year and for his hangover cure recipe. He implied in later broadcasts that it was the spirit of the season for people to help one another in their journeys, which does tend to mesh with the ideals of the church. We also have a more strange account of an event that happened in the lead up to the celebration of Travelers' Day, where an unexpected visitor completed their final journey when they arrived at the home of an old woman in a very flashy way. If you want to learn more about that story, I'll leave a link to the video I did on it in the description and in the top right. Now, those are not the only religions of humanity. In fact, there are 3 more well-known cults which have had some significant impact on the verse and are still very much active. The most impressive cult is that of the Outsiders, also known as the Sun's Eye Fellowship, established by one Dr. Marcus Fael. He was a terraforming expert who was educated at the University of Persei Analytical Research and Quantification, aka UPark. This should instantly raise a few red flags for those who've been watching my channel, as I talked about UPark and its connections to just about every major advance in UEE history. Check that video out in the top right or in the description to learn more about that. Fael was hired by Hatfield and Harding in 2743 to oversee the terraformation of Lear 2. Soon after arriving on the planet, Fael established his own mining operation without the knowledge of his employers, but was otherwise considered a model overseer. In 2803, Hatfield and Harding named Fael Employee of the Year, but he declined to receive the award in person. Instead, he sent a vid to the banquet in which he constantly repeated the phrase, "purity of purpose." Finally, in 2812, Fael cut off all communications from Lear 2 and sent out a looped broadcast announcing that the planet's purification was complete, and that he and his followers would be its stewards. You see, while Fael oversaw the terraforming of the planet, he cultivated a group of followers and organized an eventual armed takeover. Hatfield and Harding dispatched mercenaries to retake the planet, but were rebuffed. For those Star Marine players, the map The Good Doctor is based on the main facility where the cult set up shop, and the site where the company mercenaries fought against the cult and lost. Fael renamed the planet Maya and led his religious order until his death from natural causes in 2816. The Outsiders believe that in order to maintain purity, they must reject all trappings of the modern world, especially the overwhelming consumer culture of the UEE. They say that in order to attain a pure state, one must embrace self-reflection without the smothering distraction of potential societal judgment. The sun is the ultimate example of purity and is a key part of the meditation necessary on the journey to purity. The sun is another important symbol for religious worship of a cult that resides in a system a little closer to our own home of Stanton. I am speaking of the cult known as the Fire Rats in the Pyro system. Their origins stretch back to 2563, when a group of former pyrotechnic amalgamated workers found themselves abandoned on Bloom after their employer declared bankruptcy. Forced to eke out a living or perish, they took up residence in their former barracks. It's rumored that when resources began to run low, a large cargo ship that had been hit by a powerful stellar flare crashed near their settlement, granting them a bounty of supplies. This is believed to be the origin of their reverence for Pyro's star, and its especially violent stellar activity. Today, the fire rats are known for spacejacking and for sporting scars from repeated, intentional exposure to stellar flares. The fire rats may also be connected to the next cult, which also inhabits the Pyro system, that of the Prophet of Pyro. In 2548, pyrotechnic amalgamated workers, deep within a mine on Monox, also known as Pyro 2, first reported hearing a strange voice. Site supervisors didn't give the stories much weight until some workers refused to enter that mine, claiming the voice kept whispering, "Leave or be crushed." One miner even wandered off in search of the voice and suffered a severe injury from a fall. Following this incident, the site supervisor ordered a complete sweep of the mine and a check of all mining suits and communications equipment. When nothing strange or unusual was found, miners were told to get back to work or be fired. For years, workers claimed to hear a mysterious voice at odd times, but were placated by supervisors claiming it was only an auditory anomaly caused by the way air moved through the mines, or their own overactive imaginations. While the mines never actually collapsed, Pyrotechnic Amalgamated did, crushed by the cost of building a station around Terminus, Pyro 6. When the system's mines weren't as productive as they hoped, the company did not survive. Consequently, this is the origin of the current name of this massive station, which was at one point set to be the main hub for the company, now known as Ruin Station, because it ruined Pyrotechnic Amalgamated. But enough workers experienced the phenomena that after Pyrotechnic Amalgamated crumbled, people began to believe that the voice was actually a warning to the company, predicting its downfall. While there isn't any solid evidence of when this voice earned the title Prophet of Pyro, we do know that during the early part of the 27th century, several people claimed to have received a revelation from the prophet. However, their tales did little to increase the legend. That is, until Tufo Fitzhugh claimed to have an experience with the prophet. It was a story that would go on to alter the system's history. Tufo led a small crew of ultra-violent outlaws known as the Abyss, who primarily targeted miners searching Monox for overlooked deposits. Following one such operation, Tufo claimed a mysterious force drew her deep into a mine, where she reportedly heard the words, "Ruler of Ruin." Convinced it was a revelation from the Prophet of Pyro, Tufo told the Abyss that it was their destiny to take over Ruin Station. This was an extremely ambitious goal, considering the Akibu gang had kept the orbital platform under their iron grip for decades. Still, Tufo leveraged her steadfast belief in the prophecy to convince others to join her cause. In 2678, through a few strategic alliances and an impeccable plan that drew a significant portion of the ruling Akibu gang away from the ruined station, Tufo and the Abyss overtook the station in a surprise attack. They immediately locked down the area and successfully defended it from the remaining members of the rival gang for nearly 3 weeks. When the dust settled, the prophecy had come true. The Abyss were the new rulers of Ruin Station. The sudden rise of the Abyss galvanized other outlaw factions to seek the Prophet of Pyro for themselves, hoping to receive a glimpse into their own destiny. Meanwhile, Tufo Fitzhugh and the Abyss proved to be better conquerors than rulers. Within a matter of years, Ruin Station was frequently under attack by other gangs, hoping to unseat them. The constant fighting reduced Ruin Station to a wasteland. This reportedly angered and confused Tufo, who returned to Monox in hopes of receiving another divination from the Prophet. It's unknown if she received it, as her ship was attacked and destroyed during her return. The Abyss lost control of Ruin Station shortly thereafter to a coalition of smaller gangs, who would in turn spend the next year fighting amongst each other for control of the station. That now infamous year, deemed the Fight of Five Gangs, cemented Ruin Station's status within the wider popular culture as an extremely dangerous destination and the perennial powder keg. According to Kiana Richards, an investigative reporter who first discovered the strange cult in the system, 3 of the gangs who fought for control of Ruin Station claimed to have received the blessings of the Prophet. Clearly, public belief was significant enough that these gangs thought that the endorsement of the Prophet was essential to their claim to power. During her research, she attempted to discover the original site of the mine, both reported by the first workers and Utho herself on Monarchs. The only issue is that the only evidence of this mine that the Prophet resides in is vague at best, only giving a sector of the planet. However, she discovered that the enlightened of the Fire Rats travel to Monarchs during times of peak solar activity to seek the wisdom of the Prophet. So, the next time you get an alert for a CME in Pyro, you might want to take a journey to the mines of Monarchs to hear the wisdom of the Prophet themselves. Those are just the religions of humanity so far. There almost certainly will be more in the future as the game expands into new systems, each with their own unique culture. Next, I'll be covering the 4 most well-known alien civilizations of the verse. They all have some level of religious belief built into their societies, which in many cases do have bleed over into humanity, with humans who believe in some of these alien religions and philosophies. The first we will cover are the Banu. To start off, I want to be clear. Banu do have religion and faith, just not the same way humans have faith. The Banu believe in everything because, to them, it doesn't hurt to believe in all religions, because you never know who's listening. They will often have individual altars with a scattering of religious offerings to luck or money gods from a wide range of religions, including human, Tevarin, Xi'an, and possibly even Vanduul. The purpose of religious belief in Banu society is entirely focused on protection. In fact, the way that the Banu ask about someone's religious belief is, quote, "How do you protect your fortune to keep it on track?" Religion is a transactional experience like everything in Banu culture. A Banu only cares about it if they can get something out of it for themselves. Given their society is based around specialized and family-like units called Suli, each dedicated to a different task, it might not surprise you that the Banu also have specialized Suli for religion. It's important again to emphasize that religion is a business in Banu society. Religious Sulis sell themselves as expert practitioners of religious worship, and to many Banu, it is better to pay for the expert to beseech the gods for your protection than to do it yourself. Because of the whole cloth approach to religion the Banu have, I personally wouldn't be surprised to find, say, a Islamic, Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, Litovan, or Rijoran religious Suli prowling the verse alongside more traditional Banu gods. The Banu are said to have a grand pantheon of traditional deities, though. These deities are not flesh and blood. They aren't beings with desires and motivation, but considered more ideas or concepts. They're ideas of a person, not beings with desires, fears, hopes, or agendas like we often see in human religions. All of that being said, the 2 most commonly revered gods are Tevarin, the Great Traveler, and Kasa, the Patron of Luck. While it isn't specifically mentioned, it's likely that Tevarin at least partially inspired the creation of the Church of the Journey, as Banu society has had a massive impact on human practices through the years. Given that the Great Traveler is the Banu god of travelers, crossroads, and navigation, you can see the crossover with the Church of the Journey, at least on a surface level. While Tevarin is considered one of the more common gods that Banu believe in, it seems that even the Great Traveler isn't as popular as what may be the most important deity in the pantheon, the patron of luck themselves, Kasa. Kasa, the patron of luck, is the Banu god of fortune, prosperity, money, and merchants. Given how important transactional relationships are in Banu society, almost all Banu worship Kasa. Human xenoanthropologists theorize that due to how common Kasa is, it is likely the oldest of the Banu gods, though because the Banu don't keep records, we don't truly know. The worship of Kasa is often accompanied by a tholo, a 3-sided token which is used by believers as a decision-making device. The way it works is a holder will ask a question, then roll the tholo to get one of 3 answers: yes, no, or run. This connection to prediction is also tied to Kasa, as it is said that the god will give predictions or omens to some who seek their guidance. Even the human tradition of the Red Festival has been adopted by adherents to Kasa, who see it as a way to honor their god. Religious Suli also play a huge role in Banu culture as a whole, as they form the basis of what is known as the Council in the Tree System. This group of religious monks dictate the social and moral laws that all Banu are expected to adhere to. This group is isolated from the rest of Banu society, so much so that they actually prefer human and Xi'an goods over their own, so they aren't swayed by whatever is popular amongst other Banu. It is in fact illegal for Banu to even attempt to make contact with the Council. Suffice to say, religion holds an important place in Banu society, being the literal social and cultural guidestone for all Banu in their own very businesslike way. This is very similar to religion's role in Xi'an society, though in a more formative way than the Banu pantheon. With that said, let's look at the major religion of the Xi'an, known as the Litova, or the Way of Peace. The core of Litova centers around the concept of time, specifically the intent and effect of all actions throughout time, no matter how small. The core focus of Litova seems to be expanding knowledge of the universe and of oneself. It seems to focus on the idea of one's personal impact on time and time's impact on them. A major concept tied to this is known as we, or the Great Unknown. This boils down to effectively that there is truth or reality out there that has not yet been understood. This is the Great Unknown. While eventually we can expand our knowledge and truths about the universe, in doing so we also expand the Great Unknown. No matter what, there will always be things which are unknown to us. Another concept and tenet of Litova is translated as roughly ignorance is bliss. It is effectively the idea that there are certain truths which are best left unsaid or taught until you are more equipped to handle them. So younger novices of Litova are simply not told these truths until they become masters. Effectively, the truth requires preparation. This connects to the concept of Xi'an patience, which is similar to the human concept of waiting. Effectively, in Litova, everything has a time and place to happen or be revealed or done. Thus, adherents are expected to wait for the right time for just about everything, something which has become fundamental to the rigid routines of Xi'an culture. When the right time comes to stop waiting and a moment of truth is revealed, like a major breakthrough in science or technology, Litova has another term, San Pawi. It is like a revelation or eureka moment, an expansion of truth, and conversely, an expansion of the Great Unknown. The greatest holy site in Litova is known as Raipuan, or the Great Day, in the Kaifua system. This is because the planet is nearly tidally locked, and one day on the planet is 100 Xi'an years, or 128 Earth years. Because of the planet's spiritual associations, it was terraformed to be a place of peace, tranquility, and meditation. Cultivated gardens and fields cover much of the surface, with sacred temples built so that there would always be one on the horizon, no matter where you look. The temples provide the bare minimum in resources and amenities for Xi'an monks pursuing the ultimate enlightenment in Litova, spending a full day on the planet meditating. Litova, being the main religion of the Xi'an, means that a lot of Xi'an culture is tied to the religion, and a lot of their cautious yet courteous approach to humanity can be explained by their adherence to Litova. Similarly speaking, the Tevarin religion, or Rijora, is also reflective of what was Tevarin society, but in a more martial and militaristic way. The Rijora is a set of guidelines and principles concerning the behavior and lifestyle of the Tevarin people. Written by many authors over a long period of time, it was created in response to early Tevarin perishing repeatedly at the hands of predators on their homeworld, Kaleith, now Xi'an, in the Elysium system. It emphasizes an active existence and requires responsibility to oneself and one's community. It is your duty to maintain your body and mind for the good of the whole society, and to serve that society when time comes for you to do so. Followers are required to develop and consistently maintain physical and mental skills, especially as it pertains to warfare. Before the fall of the Tevarin sovereignty, all Tevarin were required to memorize the Rijora and could recite it on command. Their temples are both places of worship and training. As such, there is no seating, and instead wide open spaces specifically designed for adherents to train. It also does not seem to have a similar concept of honor as humanity does. While Rijora adherents are warriors, they fight to win in any way possible, often emphasizing stealth or terror to subjugate their foes. There doesn't seem to be the idea of quote-unquote rules of war in the Rijora, just the collective responsibility to one's group or people. Because it is so focused on collective responsibility, when a group of Tevarin defeats another group of Tevarin, the subjugated group is absorbed into their conquerors. The victors are expected to take care of the defeated. In turn, the defeated are expected to adapt and aid the victors, learning their training and culture. Thus, when the Tevarin and humanity first came into conflict, the war became a brutal slaughter on both sides. Humanity didn't have the idea of submitting to a foe the same way that Tevarin did, and it seems that the Tevarin struggled with the human tendency to engage in guerrilla warfare, while humanity struggled with the Tevarin total war approach, attacking civilian targets as readily as military ones, and engaged in both hit-and-run attacks and stealth insertions by the legendary Rijora warriors known as the Naule. When humanity eventually defeated the Tevarin in the First Tevarin War, the leader of the government, known as the Warlord, submitted to the victorious leader of humanity, Ivar Messer, likely expecting to be integrated into human society as was Rijoran tradition. Instead, humanity would begin a campaign of isolating and persecuting the Tevarin, who had started the war, a tactic that only got worse when Ivar Messer rose to become the supreme leader of a new dictatorial and very xenophobic government. This would lead to the first Tevarin diaspora, where Tevarin were forced to live in scattered systems, some outlaws, others Banu or Xi'an controlled. Eventually, a new warlord would rise named Korathal, who would gather his people in a new and stronger martial force, using the tenets of Rijora to bind them together. He seems to have been both a spiritual and military leader, leading a holy war to reclaim their sacred homeland. This would become the Second Tevarin War, and would end in the final defeat of the Tevarin. Because of this defeat, many Tevarin despaired, believing that they had failed the Rijora and were no longer worthy of following it. This would become known as the Tevarin Cultural Purge, where Rijoran texts were burned and temples were torn down. As a result, few examples of Rijoran temples remain, with the most famous being the temple on Xi'an, which was spared due to the efforts of human colonists whose militias fought back Rijoran adherents who attempted to destroy what was likely the grand central temple of their faith. Today, Rijora has surged in popularity among Tevarin after the discovery of the Cabal system, and with it many lost pieces of the Rijora. These new adherents of the faith are split between those who wish to honor the ancient practices of merging with their conquerors and those who wish to reclaim their homeworld and rebuild their society. From one martial religion to another, let's look at the last well-known religion in the verse, that of the Vanduul. You see, the Vanduul worship knives. Only partially joking on that one. While we don't know a lot about Vanduul religion, we do know it is very much tied to Vanduul society. The simple answer is Vanduul worship their leadership, with the symbol of most Vanduul faith being that of their leader's knife. For example, in one captured Vanduul ship, UEE sociologists discovered a room filled with elaborate stained glass, and it may have been a spiritual gathering place. Each of the stained glass had the same image of what looked to be a knife, which was found in the possession of the chieftain of that ship. Knives are a near religious symbols to the Vanduul because every Vanduul is required to leave their clan at the age of adulthood and are given only a knife which was handcrafted by their parents as a tool to survive. These knives become the symbol of the newly minted Vanduul adult, and as such, the knives of those who rise to form their own clans are iconic symbols of power. Vanduul society is hyper-meritocratic, with the strongest, smartest, or best Vanduul taking control and leading their clans. As such, the Vanduul under them look up to them as an example of what they should do. The most revered of these leaders are the ones that are able to unite many clans together into a horde. These leaders often have powerful symbols of their dominance, controlling what are known as kingships. So while the Vanduul don't seem to have a religion in a traditional sense, their culture practically deifies the most famous of the past leaders, to the point of religious worship, with the symbols of these leaders, their knives, becoming almost religious symbols for their entire culture. In closing, Star Citizen is filled with religions and philosophies which are the core of many of the cultures and species of the verse. As the game expands to include new systems and peoples, we will see these religions and likely more begin to affect our own experiences in the game. For now, we can study these to help us better understand how the various groups of the verse might react in the future and why they act the way they do today. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, think about liking the video, subscribing for more content, and hitting the bell icon to be notified when these are released. I'd also like to thank those on screen now for supporting the channel financially. If you want to throw in a few credits, think about becoming a member on YouTube, and if you want a bit more for your contribution, join the Ko-fi or Patreon. Patreons and Ko-fi members get early, ad-free access to all videos, including exclusive early access to my long-running complete history of Star Citizen lore series. Check those out now in the top right if you want to know what you're getting. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on the religions of the verse, and any other lore topics in the comments below. And as always, remember, ex historia ad astra.